Hello friends, welcome back to Product and Brand Management. Now onwards, we would be going for a discussion on brand perspective, a product being a brand, how product takes a leap to become a brand. It's a beautiful kind of a journey which product takes from being itself to being a brand. How it happens, we'll try to analyze that, we'll try to understand that. We'll be using lots of discussion points and examples. We'll be using lots of elements also, which might make things slightly complicated. But to tell you a truth, that branding is one of the most enduring elements of whole of the marketing exercise. And trust me, at the end you might feel that it matters, or all it matters when a product becomes a brand, a service becomes a brand, and then the new journey of that product or service begins. So we'll try to see how it happens, how what kind of aspects are associated with that, how it is perceived. Can we do it strategically? Can we identify those aspects wherein we may work upon them and then a product can be converted into a brand? Is there any aspect of a product life cycle which can be steered, I should not say endlessly, but then definitely for a longer time after a product becomes a brand? So these are very important questions, and you would remember that while talking about product life cycle, I discussed about brand life cycle as such, and then I tried to briefly mention that product life cycle has a clear cut time span which could have been seen in terms of stages, or which we saw in terms of different kinds of stages, and at the end we concluded that there are almost 6 stages which we worked upon, starting from introduction to growth, then saddle to growth, then maturity, and then decline, and then revival, rejuvenation, which we talked about in our last segment. So now let's take a leap towards understanding brand and brand management, and try to understand this with a perspective in the beginning. Let's look at the brand with reference to being one of the most fundamental aspects of its definition. Name. I will come to definition part later on. Name. Now, you see, because I work with the Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, so it's more apt that I should start our discussion with this example. And definitely IIT Roorkee carries a huge brand value, which we will talk about how brand value develops in due course of time. And nowadays when I am talking to you, it's 3rd of December and it's the 3rd day of placement season across IITs. So brand value, brand equity matters a lot when we talk of placements for our students basically, and that makes this discussion more apt and more genuine when we talk of such kind of elements in correlation with how brands they get developed. And believe me, I have a personal experience on this, so I'll be talking about this briefly, and then I'll be using this example many a times incidentally, because I'm working with one of the largest brands in the country and globally as well. So you see, when you say Indian Institute of Technology, something comes to your mind. Now let's give it a different connotation by saying IIT. Definitely the picture remains the same, but slightly different kind of a perspective gets emanated, because this is more commonly used as far as general vocabulary goes, IIT. Then let's talk of IIT Roorkee. You say IIT Roorkee, then definitely the perspective gets enlarged, or for some it gets constricted comparatively. And I will be talking about this briefly. So you see, while I am referring to these 3 connotations, IIT Roorkee with the perspective of individuality, IIT as a name, resonating with institutions in general named by this name, called by this name, and then Indian Institute of Technology. So, you see, there comes a perspective in general. What does it mean? So, people in general, you talk to anyone randomly at this moment also while you are watching this video, just stop it for a while and talk to someone, what does IIT means to you? And then in general, just passing by, you talk to someone and say Indian Institute of Technology. And then if you know someone who has been associated with IIT Roorkee or in general as well, try to ask the same question. You would realize the change in the connotation and the perspective and the image which would come out. We will be talking about these elements at length, but I am just putting up a fundamental basis for our further discussions which would go on for quite a number of sessions. So, there is a perspective in general. Then comes in perspective of an aspirant. You go to a coaching institution, talk to this young guy who is working very hard to crack one of the entrance examinations for any degree level, whichever he aspires for. You talk to an aspirant, or you talk to someone in school, a young school girl, a school boy who thinks of joining one of these institutions. And then again take these three names, Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, IIT Roorkee. You will find an aspiration, a dream, a perspective, and when you will say IIT Roorkee, you would find a comparison also. Then move further, talk to a recruiter, an organization which hires from IITs. Talk to their HR heads, human resource management managers, and people who are responsible for hiring talents from these institutions. Talk to them, and you would definitely find lots of insights in terms of the potential of these students and the role they would be playing in the future economies and so on, globally as well as nationally. And today there is a very thin demarcation between as far as national or global, basically all is getting deeply intertwined and interlinked. So, they would give you definitely, and there would be again a lots of comparison, lots of intensity in terms of categorization, in terms of courses, probably in terms of the kind of pedagogical inputs, in terms of resources, and then several kinds of elements they would use to demarcate about the strengths of the students. And then go to other stakeholders, for example, partner institutions. Let us say just go to other universities or partner organizations which have been partnering with IITs in terms of researches, in terms of collaborations and so on, and look at their watch their websites, and you would realize that they have different categorization as a partner, the kind of strengths they have been seeking as far as getting associated with these institutions. And then the most beautiful part, probably apart from the aspirants, and that is again a very beautiful part for me, because that part has dreams. But then talk to an alumnus, person who has studied here, recent pass out for example, and he is not yet out of that situation wherein he was a student. So, talk to him about this, and he will give you or she will give you a very different perspective on, and here you would hear about experiences, you would hear about the gains they would have had, the knowledge they would have gained, even sports and culture and several things, and then definitely about teachers and their peer group. And young pass outs, they have very beautiful names about the teachers as well. I have some experience on that. So, now the point is, then you talk to someone who has grown, who has risen in life and is on the rising spree, and he has some senior who probably is her inspiration in terms of the growth she would have gained, and talk to this person as an alumnus, and you would find so many aspects that she would be remembering in terms of what she would have learned, how she looks at the strength of this brand. I am slowly introducing you with the terms, the aspects of brand strength, for example. I talked about elements and then talked about potential as well, and I mentioned resonance as well. And keep these things in mind, and you would be structurally learning all these elements in terms of being a pyramid, for example, or let us say a chain, for example, or in consonance with each other. And then you talk to someone who graduated, let us say 50 years ago. I recently attended an alumni meet at IIT Roorkee, wherein people graduated in who graduated in 1971. They joined us just a few weeks back, and believe me, the kind of persona they had about this institution in mind is great, basically. And that is where brand perspective, brand strength, brand power comes together in terms of brand equity. You just ask them one very simple question: would you recommend IIT Roorkee to anyone whom you know? They would say yes. What role IIT Roorkee has played in your life? Every role it has played in our life. Our existence is directed because of IIT Roorkee. You see, that is the kind of perspective they carry, and probably all these things and much more becomes the constituent of a brand's equity, which we are talking about and which we would be referring continuously, and we would be ending our discussion at that point only, because ultimately it is a brand's equity which matters. So, experience counts everywhere, and that is again one of the mainstays which you should remember. So, having described almost all the elements, and then one more thing which I would mention later as well, but just to give you a glimpse of the recruiting partners, if they are having a brand value or brand equity for themselves, if you will ask this larger brand value or brand equity for themselves, I should say, otherwise everyone has certain brand value and brand equity. So, if you will ask those people, then definitely a perspective of deeper association, or let us say mutual gain in terms of brand also comes to fore. I will be talking about these elements later on. Just keep this in mind, just keep surfing about what IITs are doing, how they have become so important in India, in India's growth journey, and how students have gained from here, and particularly this season, this December season, watch it for as many years as you like, and you would realize that IITs always are in the news. For example, right now when I am talking to you, IIT Roorkee is in the news at the topmost levels, and I feel happy about this. So, and this is 3rd December, so watch the news of 2nd December 2021, because you would be watching this video in 2022. So, now you see, let us talk about brand and brand evaluators. It is again a very interesting kind of an example. Have you heard about rating agencies? Yes. How many names of rating agencies do you remember? Probably few. But still, their rating matters and their evaluation matters. The perspective which they develop amongst the respondents, not just they want to develop the perspective, they have a methodology. So, you see, here comes the aspect of brand evaluation, the brand value and credibility of the rating agencies or ranking organizations their own brand perspective, which is related to their methodology and credibility, and the perspective which gets generated when organizations they participate in ratings and ranks. For example, if there is a ranking in relation to how good an organization in terms of the working environment, for example, that there is a rating associated with that. But I am just taking it as an example. You can go to the websites of these kind of rating agencies. There are rating agencies which rate educational institutions, and educational institutions definitely, because they are doing well, they participate in these kind of rankings and they project what good they are doing, so that their respondents, their stakeholders, their beneficiaries, their funding organizations, they know, they get to know that what kind of a credibility they are generating in due course of time. So, it is not only that they want to be rated, they want to suggest that they are true to their purpose. But the point is, how does it affects, you see. So, for example, let me systematically put up a sequence in front of you, wherein rating organizations matter for definitely whom they rate, but does their name matters? We have to see, because ultimately their name is known to people whom they rate, but in general the masses who get the perception out of those ratings, do they remember the names of the organizations who are rating their clients or their participants or their members? We have to see. I would not say yes or no, but we have to find out that how many people actually do remember. And why am I marking this? Because I want to draw your attention towards towards an important fact, that rating itself may hold credibility, and then rank is in itself a benchmark. For example, at this moment X is number 1. Now, number 1, if it is an ordinal gesture, ordinal perspective, then it matters. How, why comes after that. And that is where, you see, for example, how many athletes do you remember in terms of their performance? For example, a sprint runner has run 100 meters in how many seconds? Many sports enthusiasts would remember this, but others might remember the name of the person who came first. I am just taking it as an example. I am not trying to evaluate that particular kind of a situation here at all. The rating, when comes in ordinal perspective, the number becomes a benchmark in itself. Now, it can be a mutual benefit for the evaluators and the brands they evaluate. Definitely, if you evaluate the brands which have larger brand equity, definitely. So, your rating perspective and your credibility also would match with that, and somehow it gives a mutual benefit. But the question still remains, do we remember the names of so many rating organizations? Keep this in mind. I will be coming back to this at a later stage, wherein I would be talking about the mutual brand associations, mutual brand gains, to what extent it should be there, why it is there, and how does it affects. And in due course of time, which becomes the dominant factor for which brand becomes the dominant factor for the other brand in terms of mutual association. Now, again talking of names, let me give you a very important example in terms of a media organization. You see, I thought about this because when I decided to talk to you about rating agencies, then media, which is a vehicle for organizations to generate awareness about them, and we would realize that generation of awareness is again a very important constituent of developing a brand value and brand equity later on. Media organizations are an important part of that, very important part of that. And if you want the details of how media organizations they work, you can watch my videos on integrated marketing communication, which were floated in January 2021, 24 January 2021. So those are available on NPTEL, of course. So now you see, media organization has two kinds of, largely, and it's a broader discussion, so don't take it verbatim, but just in terms of a larger, broader classification. Media organization has two broader aspects: a value of its own, being a media organization, a vehicle, a carrier which actually brings to you whatever is around, the facts, the news. So that itself is a credible thing. Now that media organization, if has a larger brand value and talks about some brand, then definitely may contribute in terms of the brand value of the person, place or thing or organization about which they would be talking. And you see, that is where the sequential strength comes in. That is where the contribution of media comes in. That is where the credibility actually credibility of the vehicle actually strengthens the trust of the organization, place or person about whom they would be talking. And that is why it's an interesting relationship. Now again, the point is, media, the vehicle itself, has to generate revenue, which comes from the advertisements they get from different kinds of organizations. So despite of the fact that they have a revenue source from the organizations about whom they might be talking about, still they maintain a level of discretion and credibility, and people trust them. How do they build this kind of a brand equity wherein this demarcation also works and their trust also works is a very interesting kind of a thing which one must notice. You have never doubted the credibility of a media vehicle despite of the fact that they are advertising about the same organization about which they are putting up a news, whichever way. So that is what should be kept in mind at this particular level and particular stage. Now, having briefly described the aspects of as far as how media and media as a vehicle works for contributing and developing the brand equity, I will briefly be narrating a story for you, just to remember that a basic product like water gets converted into a brand in due course of time, and after that I will be taking you towards a step further while connecting you to the discussion we have had in terms of products becoming brands. Now, the product we have chosen is Bisleri, a brand that dared to become synonymous with water. And you see, how many times you would have said in a flow that please give me a Bisleri instead of saying give me bottled water, or you might have taken different names as well, but you might have said please give me Bisleri. Or many people, at least in India, they happen to ask the retailer to give them Bisleri instead of bottled water. And that is where a product becomes synonymous with being its name, or a particular kind of a name. Bisleri was originally an Italian company created by Signor Felice Bisleri. He first brought the idea of selling bottled water in India. In 1965, Bisleri set up a plant in Mumbai and started manufacturing packaged drinking water in glass bottles in two varieties, bubbly and still. Parle bought over Bisleri India Limited in 1969 and started manufacturing under the brand name Bisleri. And Bisleri was synonymous with branded water market early 1990s and till date also. It's a well known name as far as its presence goes. And you see, there are several variants of this product. It's a household name. Now, Bisleri has become a common term in the world of packaged water. This conception has helped the brand strengthen its brand image, giving it a leg up, or let us say a rise amongst its consumers or target market. There are several other products which put up similar names to sell themselves. So that is another story wherein many products, they try to copy your name and then slightly differentiate that, so that a legal obligation is not there, and try to sell their product with a similar kind of a connotation, getting the advantage of your brand value. We will be talking about this later on. So this happened with Bisleri as well. And then Bisleri somehow realized that they should be telling people that har pani ki bottle Bisleri nahi. You see, they are purchasing several other products in the name of Bisleri. So Bisleri became synonymous with the product, and then people were asking for different brands or different products in the name of Bisleri. So Bisleri had to demarcate that, because somehow they might have realized that sales has to be risen in equity with or in consonance with their brand value which they were enjoying, they have been enjoying. And here again one point comes to you, that brand value has to develop a consonance in terms of revenue generation or units sold, and that we will be talking about in due course of time. Different campaigns of Bisleri were initiated in due course of time, one nation, one water, for example. And you see, it became generic to the water bottle category in due course of time. And again, when I am talking of this product, you will find several similar products which in due course of time started being used as a connotation for the product basically. I remember a very interesting example, a very cute, beautiful name, Tullu. Now Tullu became synonymous with water pumps. Such a kind of brand equity this product enjoyed. I am not sure about the sales levels which they are enjoying at this moment, but that became like that. Godrej became synonymous with refrigerators in due course of time. It is quite synonymous with furniture still as far as their presence goes. And there are several such products basically. If you will try to find out, then there was a name called Dalda, for example. Now it became synonymous with oil, and then several other, Colgate for example. There was a toothpaste called Binaka. So Binaka, and Binaka Geetmala is a famous program on radio. So Binaka became synonymous with toothpaste. Colgate has enjoyed this position for quite some time, and then there are several such kinds of products. We just have to look around, we will realize that these products, they enjoyed that kind of a value, strength and equity. Remember these terms. I will be deciphering all of this and the associated methodologies which brand experts and managers use for building up brands in due course of time. And I would also be deciphering the secret of how brands themselves, they develop their own equity in due course of time. I will be joining back with lots of insights in continuation to this discussion. Just hold till then. Goodbye.